Hello and welcome. Now we have our all process ready. So we are going to understand docker-compose.yaml file and then we are going to deploy this. Let's start. So here I have docker-compose file and this is a whole file that we are going to use. This is YAML file. It is very easy to understand, but keep this in mind when you are writing YAML file, make sure you are having right indentation. If you make any indentation mistake, then you will be in trouble. Now we are going to understand all the lines step by step of this particular compose file. So let's start with the line number 1 and this is version 3.7. The version field in docker-compose.yaml file specifies the file format version and dictates the available feature and syntax. If you are specifying version, it would be very easy for other people so they can understand which command we can run inside this particular docker-compose file. It is not mandatory to add a version detail over here, but it is always good idea because if others are going to use this file, they can understand that which commands we can enter over here. It is depend on the docker-compose version installed on your Docker host. Newer docker-compose version supports more recent file format version. Always specify compatible version to ensure proper functionality and access to the latest feature. So this is version detail and I think 3.7 is a new version, so we are using this. So first line is all about version. Now let's talk about second line, which is actually defining services. If you look at this, here we have services and here we are defining 3 services. The first we have web server, the second we have DB and third we have is adminer. So let's understand everything step by step. The services section defines the individual containers that makes up your application. Here we are defining 3 services. First web, here we have this particular section, then we have DB, second, and then we have adminer. If you look at this carefully, we are just using same command over here in the YAML file. So now let's understand all these services. We are going to start with the web services first. Here we have this particular section of web services. Let's understand this. Web, the name of the service, or we can say that the name of the container. So it will create a container named web. This name is used to refer to the services within docker-compose file and in docker command. Then we have another line which is having build:/php web server. Specify the build context. Docker will look for a Docker file in ./php web server directory to build the images for this service. Now, whenever you are going to specify this directory must be there, and in this directory you must have Docker file. If you look at the whole source code that I provided, if you go to the Docker compose, okay, and if you give ls command over here, we have this PHP web server. So here we are just specifying that in current directory we have another directory, PHP web server, it is there. And if you go inside this PHP web server, you will find out all necessary file related to this container like Docker file, index.php and submit.php. So here we just need to define that from where you are going to build image and create container from this particular service. Now ports, define ports mapping between the host and container. 8080:80 maps the port 8080 on the host to port 80 of the container. This is the same thing that we have defined for a container web server without Docker compose. Here we are going to run our application on port number 8080 of Docker host, and then the Docker host will forward this request to the port number 80 of the container. This means that you can access web server using HTTP localhost 8080. Then we need to define network. So when this container will be ready, it is going to connect with my network. specify the network the service is connect to. My network is a network name that we are going to connect. The web service will connect to the my network networks. Now you may have one question over here that you are defining my network over here, but it is not there. We just clear everything. No need to worry. If you look at over here, you will find out that we are defining my networks in the YAML file. So you don't need to worry about this. Docker compose will create this network. And then finally depends on. Now this container is web server. Now web server is going to store data inside our DB container. So here we just specifying that this container is depend on the DB container. Specifying the dependency between services. The web service depend on the DB service, meaning that DB service will started before the web server. So it is going to set the sequence. And it is always there in the system administration task as well. That suppose if you have web server and database server, you have to start database server first and then you can start web server. So here we are going to define this as well. If you are going to define this depends on DB, it means it is going to start DB first and then it will start this web server. So this is all about our first container, which is defined over here. Now we need to understand DB as well. So let's understand this. The first DB is defining that we are going to create container with the name DB. Then we have built :/./MySQL. So specify the build context. So we are going to get Docker file from this particular MySQL folder. We'll also get required files like init.SQL from this particular folder as well. Then environment, here we are defining environment. As you know that if you are going to create DB container, we have to set up password for our database. Default user, admin user is root. Then we have to define database name as well. So here we have testdb. As we are creating this particular database server, we have to have persistent data storage. So we are defining volumes here. Now, we will create volumes afterwards as well, but this volume will be used with this particular container. Then we need to copy.
Sorry guys, sorry to disturb you. I know you all are enjoying the session and suddenly it stopped. But if you want full video or if you want full Docker course having 130 plus videos including projects, you can become our community member. Enrollment link is in description. Moreover, we also provide 24/7 support, weekly lifetime live session with Bhavesh Atara, updates and completion certification as well. Still you have any queries regarding it, you can contact me on my personal number. Thank you.